Captain Daeho Kim stood in the center of the massive chamber, looking up at the 12 alien representatives who sat in their floating seats high above him. The Galactic Council Station was huge, bigger than most cities on Earth. It spun slowly, around the star Proxima Centauri, its metal walls gleaming in the red light. For 3 years Daeho had come to this place. For 3 years, he had asked the same question. Today, he would finally get his answer. Will humanity be allowed to join the Galactic Federation? The aliens looked down at him like he was some kind of bug. The Vorthak were tall crystal beings that looked like living diamonds. The Namari were clouds of gas held together by energy. Fields. The Quilix looked like giant insects with too many arms and eyes that never blinked. High Chancellor Vexitar, the leader of the Vorthak, stood up. His crystal body caught the light and threw rainbow patterns on the walls. When he spoke, his voice sounded like wind chimes in a storm. Captain Kim of the species called humans, Vexitar said. We have watched your kind for many years. We have studied your history. We have seen what you do to your own planet and to each other. Daeho kept his face calm, but inside he felt his heart beating faster. Behind him, his crew waited. Communications. Officer So Young Park stood ready at her station. Science Officer Hyun-Woo Lee had his hands behind his back, but Daeho could see his fingers tapping against his leg. The Galactic Federation has made its decision, Vexitar continued. Humans are too violent, too dangerous, too wild. You fight wars over small pieces of land. You poison your own air and water. You cannot even agree on simple things among yourselves. The other aliens nodded. A Namari delegate, whose gas body swirled with angry red colors, spoke next. Your species has spread to 12 star systems without asking permission. You build weapons instead of art. You study war instead of peace. Daeho wanted to laugh. These aliens thought they knew humans? They had no idea. Therefore, Vexitar said, his crystal form growing brighter, the Galactic Federation declares that humanity is not fit to join civilized society. More than that, your expansion into space without our permission is an act of war against the established order. The chamber fell silent. The only sound was the soft hum of the station's engines. The Galactic Federation hereby declares war on the human species, Vexitar announced. You have 7 solar cycles to remove all humans from every world except Earth. After that, we will remove you ourselves. This is not a negotiation. This is a final warning. The aliens expected many things. They expected Daeho to fall to his knees and beg. They expected him to cry or shout or threaten them. They expected fear. What they did not expect was for Daeho to smile. It started as a small grin at the corner of his mouth. Then it grew wider. Soon, Captain Daeho Kim was smiling so broadly that his eyes crinkled at the corners. Behind him, So Young Park made a small sound. It took the aliens a moment to realize she was trying not to laugh. Hyun-Woo Lee was not even trying to hide it. He chuckled and shook his head like he had just heard the funniest joke in the galaxy. 7 days? Daeho asked. His voice was calm, but there was something in it that made the crystal beings flicker with confusion. You're giving us 7 whole days? The aliens looked at each other. This was not the reaction they had planned for. Is something amusing about our declaration of war? Vexitar demanded. His crystal body pulsed with angry light. Oh, it's very amusing, Daeho said. He turned to So Young. Lieutenant Park, please send a message to Earth Command, Priority 1. So Young's fingers danced over her control panel. Channel open, Captain. Earth Command, this is Captain Kim, aboard the Horizon's Edge. The Galactic Federation has just declared war on humanity. He paused, his smile growing even wider. Please tell Admiral Nam to prep the museum ships. Looks like we're going to need them after all. The aliens heard this and became even more confused. Museum ships? What were museum ships? Also, Daeho continued, send word to all colonies. Tell them the vacation is over. Time to get back to work. Vacation? The Quilix delegate clicked in its strange insect language. What vacation? Daeho finally looked back up at the aliens. His smile was gone now, replaced by something that made even the mighty Vorthak step back in their floating chairs. For 300 years, Deho said slowly, humanity has been peaceful. We've been good neighbors. We've followed your rules and tried to fit into your idea of a civilized galaxy. He clasped his hands behind his back. Do you know why we did that? The alien said nothing. Because we were tired, Deho continued. Tired of fighting, tired of war. We thought maybe, just maybe, we could learn to be something else. Something better. He walked closer to the center of the chamber, where a beam of light from above made him seem larger than he really was. But you know what? You're right about us. We are violent. We are dangerous. We are really, really good at war. His voice grew quieter but somehow more frightening. And you just gave us permission to remember that. So Young finished sending the message. Message sent, Captain. Earth Command confirms receipt. Admiral Nam says, he says to tell you that the old man is excited to dust off his toys. Hyunwoo Lee laughed out loud at that. Oh, the Admiral is going to love this. He's been complaining for years that peacetime is boring. Deho nodded to his crew. Ladies and gentlemen, let's go home. We have a war to prepare for. As the human delegation turned to leave, Vextar called after them. You cannot win. We have 12 species. We have thousands of ships. We have ruled the galaxy for 1,000,000 years. Deho stopped at the chamber door and looked back one last time. High Chancellor, with all due respect, you have no idea what you just started, but you're about to find out. The door closed behind the humans, leaving the aliens alone in their great chamber. For the first time in 1,000 years, the Galactic Council sat in worried silence. Outside, aboard the human ship Horizon's Edge, Captain Dae-Ho Kim sat in his command chair and watched the alien station grow smaller on the main screen. Captain, So Young said from her station, we're receiving messages from Earth, lots of them. What do they say? So Young smiled as she read her screens, mostly variations of It's About Time and finally something interesting. Oh, and the President sends his regards. He says the defense contractors are already opening champagne. Hyunwoo Lee looked up from his science station. Captain, our long-range sensors are picking up increased activity in the Sol system. Looks like someone just turned on a lot of things that were supposed to be turned off. Dae-Ho nodded. The ship jumped to faster-than-light speed, heading home to Earth. Behind them, the aliens were already regretting their decision, though they didn't know it yet. The galaxy was about to learn why humans were the only species to turn warfare into an art form, and the lesson was going to be painful. The message from Captain Dae-Ho Kim reached Earth in less than 6 hours. It traveled through the quantum communication network that connected all human colonies, bouncing from relay to relay until it arrived at Terra Nova Command Center, buried 3 kilometers under the Swiss Alps. Admiral Ji-Hoon Nam was drinking his morning coffee when the priority alert sounded. Red lights flashed throughout the command center as staff officers hurried to their stations. The Admiral was an old man, with gray hair and scars on his hands from the colony wars 50 years ago. But when he read the message, his eyes lit up, like a young soldier's. Finally, he whispered, then louder. All department heads to the main briefing room, now. Within minutes, the most important people in human space were gathered around a holographic table. General Seojin Park, head of the Seoul Defense Grid. Dr. Hana Song, Director of Strategic Research. Admiral Kyung-Ho Shin, Commander of the Home Fleet. They all looked at the message floating in the air above the table. The Galactic Federation has declared war on humanity, Admiral Nam said. They want us to evacuate all our colonies in 7 days. The room was quiet for exactly 3 seconds. Then Dr. Song started laughing. 7 days? She said. That's adorable. They think we need 7 days to get ready. General Park leaned back in her chair. Sir, should I activate the Seoul defense grid? Already done, Admiral Nam replied. I gave the order 5 minutes ago. How long until everything is online? The grid will be fully operational in 2 hours, Park said. All orbital platforms, all missile stations, all the fun toys we've been saving for a special occasion. Admiral Shin raised his hand. What about the museum ships? Everyone in the room smiled at that. The museum ships were Admiral Nam's pet project. Old warships from humanity's violent past, kept in perfect condition for historical purposes. Of course, they just happened to be parked in strategic locations around the solar system, and they just happened to be fully armed and ready for combat. The Yamato, Bismarck, and Enterprise are already powering up their reactors, Admiral Nam said, along with about 200 other ships that the Federation thinks are just floating museums. Dr. Song pulled up a holographic display showing the galaxy. Red dots marked Federation military positions. Blue dots showed human colonies. "I've been tracking Federation fleet movements for 20 years, she said. They use the same tactics they've used for centuries. Energy shields, plasma weapons, direct frontal attacks, they fight like gentlemen. And we fight like pirates," Admiral Shin said with a grin. "Exactly. Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons. They've never faced kinetic projectiles, moving at significant fractions of light speed. They fight in formation because that's how civilized species fight. They've never encountered guerrilla warfare." Admiral Nam stood up and walked to the big display screen that showed Earth. "Send the activation codes to all colonies. Tell them Project Prometheus is now active." Project Prometheus. For 3 centuries, every human colony had been built with hidden military capabilities. Mining stations that were actually fortresses. Research outposts that were really military bases. Trade ships that could transform into warships at a moment's notice. The Federation thought humans were peaceful now. They had no idea that peace was just humanity's way of getting ready for the next war. On Earth, the news spread fast. Within hours, every human on the planet knew that aliens had declared war on them. The reaction was not what anyone expected. In Seoul, Min-ho Kim stood in front of cameras broadcasting to billions of people. He was a military historian, a man who had spent his life studying human warfare. "For 300 years, he said, we have been preparing for this exact moment. Every wargame, every simulation, every piece of technology we've developed. The aliens think we're primitive. They're about to learn why humans are the only species that weaponized curiosity." The stock market went up. Military recruitment centers had lines around the block. Street parties broke out in major cities around the world. On Mars, the terraforming domes that had been slowly changing the planet's atmosphere for decades suddenly retracted. Underneath them were launch bays that had been hidden since the planet was first colonized. Ships that had been disguised as atmospheric processors revealed themselves to be destroyers and cruisers. In the asteroid belt, mining stations stopped mining and started manufacturing. The robotic factories that had been building habitats and life support systems switched to producing missiles, fighters, and weapons that the Federation had never seen before. On the outer rim, Colony Administrator Tae-young Park received Admiral Nam's message at his station orbiting Kepler 442b. He immediately activated protocols that every colonist had known since childhood, but hoped they would never need to use. The mining platform, transformed, ore processing equipment folded away to reveal railgun batteries. Cargo bays opened to show fighter squadrons. The fusion reactor that powered the mining operation was diverted to charge weapons that could crack a moon in half. Young-Soo Han, the station's chief of operations, looked out at the approaching Federation scout ships on his display. "Well," he said to his crew, "looks like our vacation from violence is over." His crew, men and women who had been pretending to be miners for years, grinned and took their positions at weapon stations they had drilled on every week but never expected to use. Back on Earth, the transformation was even more dramatic. Orbital platforms that tourists thought were solar power collectors revealed themselves to be particle beam weapons. The Moon's scientific research stations opened their hidden missile silos. Europa's underwater cities launched submarine-like craft that could fight in the vacuum of space. President In-soo Kim addressed the planet from the Global Parliament building in Geneva. "My fellow humans," she said, "today the galaxy made a mistake. They declared war on the species that turned warfare into science and science into art. They will learn why that was unwise." In military bases around the world, soldiers who had been training in theoretical combat scenarios suddenly realized their training was about to become very real. Fighter pilots who had been flying simulation missions learned that their simulators were actually remote control interfaces for real ships hidden throughout the solar system. Dr. Jae-min Choi, head of Earth's Xenobiology Division, was already analyzing data from every contact humans had ever had with Federation species. Within hours, his teams were developing psychological warfare techniques tailored to each alien race, biological weapons that targeted specific alien physiology, and computer viruses designed to infect alien quantum networks. The Federation's mistake, Dr. Choi told his staff, was thinking that peace made us weak. They don't understand that for humans, peace is just war by other means. Admiral Nam stood in the command center, watching displays that showed the entire solar system coming alive with military activity. Ships that had been decommissioned were launching from hidden bases. Weapons that had been dismantled were powering up. Soldiers who had been retired were reporting for duty. "Sir," Communications Officer Bo Young Lee reported, "we're receiving confirmations from all colonies. All defense platforms are operational. All hidden fleets are ready. Project Prometheus is fully active." Admiral Nam nodded. He opened a channel that would reach every human in the galaxy. "Citizens of the Terran Confederation," he said, his voice carrying to 12 star systems. "Today, the Galactic Federation declared war on humanity. They made this choice because they think we are too violent, too dangerous, too unpredictable for civilized society." He paused, smiling. "They're absolutely right. The difference is we've learned to control that violence, to channel it, to use it to protect what we love. Today, they gave us permission to show them what we're really capable of." The transmission ended. Across human space, millions of people went to work. Not the work of farmers or miners or scientists, but their real work. The work they had been training for their entire lives. The work of war. The Federation had 7 days to reach human space. Humanity was ready in 7 hours. The Federation's 3rd Scout Fleet approached the Kepler 442b system with confidence. Admiral Kilthax, a Quillix with 4 arms and compound eyes that could see in 16 different spectrums, studied the data on his screens. According to Federation intelligence, this was a small human mining operation with maybe 200 civilians. "Simple target," he clicked to his officers in the Quillix language. "We destroy this station, take some prisoners, send a message to the other humans, show them what happens when they defy the Federation." His fleet was impressive by Federation standards. 5 destroyers, 2 cruisers, and his flagship, the mighty battleship Dominance. Energy shields that could stop any known weapon. Plasma cannons that could melt asteroids. Tractor beams that could hold a ship motionless while it was destroyed. The Quillix had been part of the Federation for 800 years. They had conquered dozens of species. They knew how civilized warfare worked. They were about to learn that humans didn't fight civilized wars. Young-Soo Han watched the alien ships approach on his command screen. The mining station Kepler base looked exactly like what it was supposed to be. A simple operation pulling metals from the asteroid belt around the system's gas giant. But Young-Soo knew better. "All crew to battle stations," he announced over the station's communication system. "This is not a drill. Repeat, this is not a drill." Around the station, men and women who had been pretending to be miners for 3 years moved to positions they had practiced every week. Engineer Mi Young-shin powered up the fusion reactor to combat levels. Gunner Woo-jin Park armed the railgun batteries that had been disguised as ore processing equipment. Fighter pilot Bo-ra Kim ran to her ship, which had been hidden in what looked like a storage bay. "Federation fleet, this is Kepler base," Young-Soo transmitted to the approaching ships. "You are entering human space without permission. Turn around now." Admiral Kilthax was amused. These primitive humans thought they could order him around. "Human station, this is Admiral Kilthax of the Galactic Federation. You will surrender immediately or be destroyed." Young-Soo looked at his crew. They were all smiling. "Admiral Kilthax," Young-Soo replied, "you picked the wrong species to threaten." That's when Kepler base revealed its true nature. The outer shell of the mining station folded away like flower petals opening. Underneath was a fortress bristling with weapons. Railgun turrets that had been hidden inside fake ore processors swiveled toward the Federation fleet. Missile tubes that had been disguised as storage tanks opened and armed their warheads. Admiral Kilthax had exactly 3 seconds to realize he had made a terrible mistake. The first salvo of tungsten slugs left the railguns at 12% of light speed. The Federation's energy shields, designed to stop plasma and laser weapons, might as well have been made of paper. The solid metal projectiles punched through them like they weren't there. 3 Federation destroyers died in the first 30 seconds of the battle. Impossible. Admiral Kilthax clicked as his ship's bridge shook from near misses. They're using kinetic weapons. Solid projectiles, that's barbaric. His weapons officer, a young Quillix named Torvik, looked up from his controls. Sir, our shields have no effect against their weapons. Our targeting computers can't lock onto projectiles moving that fast. That's when the mining drones launched. What the Federation had thought were simple robotic miners revealed themselves to be stealth fighters. Bora Kim led the squadron of 12 ships that used cold-running engines and radar-absorbing materials. The Federation sensors couldn't see them until they were already among the fleet. This is Viper 1, Bora announced over the human combat frequency. Beginning attack run. The human fighters didn't use energy weapons that the Federation could defend against. Instead, they carried missile pods loaded with armor-piercing warheads and autocannons that fired depleted uranium shells. They darted between the Federation ships like angry insects, too fast and too small for the big alien weapons to target. Admiral Kilthax watched in horror as his supposedly superior fleet was torn apart by humans using weapons that violated every principle of civilized warfare. They fight like animals, he clicked. No honor, no rules. Sir, his communications officer reported, we're receiving similar reports from fleets across human space. All our advanced forces are under attack. The humans were ready. For us. On 12 different worlds, similar scenes played out. Every human colony that the Federation had thought would be easy targets revealed hidden defenses. Mining stations became fortresses. Research outposts became military bases. Merchant ships deployed weapons and started hunting Federation scouts. Captain Dong-Hyun Lee commanded what the Federation thought was a simple cargo hauler called the Merchant's Dream. When 3 Federation cruisers tried to capture his ship, they discovered it was actually a disguised dreadnought with adaptive armor and enough firepower to level a city. Federation ships, Captain Lee transmitted as his cargo hauler transformed into a warship. You seem to be lost. Let me give you directions. His ship's missile pods opened and launched a spread of antimatter-tipped warheads. The Federation cruisers' shields collapsed under the assault and their hulls cracked like eggshells. Back in the Kepler system, Admiral Kilthax was down to his flagship and 1 damaged destroyer. Half his crew was dead. His ship was leaking atmosphere and his weapons were offline. Admiral, Young-Soo Han's voice came over the communication channel. Do you surrender? The Quillix Admiral looked around his ruined bridge. His compound eyes saw his dead officers, his sparking control panels, his shattered displays. For 800 years, the Quillix had been proud members of the Federation. They had never lost a battle. I surrender. He clicked weakly. Good choice, Young-Soo replied. Prepare to be boarded. Human Marines in powered armor docked with the Federation flagship. They moved through the ship with practiced efficiency, securing prisoners and gathering intelligence. These weren't the peaceful miners the Federation had expected to find. These were soldiers who had been waiting their entire lives for this moment. Dr. Sujin Lee, the station's chief scientist, began analyzing captured Federation technology. Within hours, human engineers were developing countermeasures, improvements, and ways to turn the aliens' own weapons against them. Interesting, Dr. Lee said as she studied a Federation plasma cannon. They've been using the same basic technology for centuries. No innovation, no adaptation. They got comfortable. Meanwhile, on Earth, the reports were coming in from across human space. Every Federation advance force had been destroyed or captured. The aliens who had expected to find helpless colonists instead found themselves facing the fury of humanity unleashed. Admiral Ji-Hoon Nam stood in the Terra Nova Command Center, watching the tactical displays that showed Federation forces retreating from human space. "Status report," he ordered. "All Federation scout fleets eliminated or captured," General Seojin Park reported. "0 human casualties. We now have intact examples of their technology and several hundred prisoners. Any word from their main fleets? Long-range sensors. Show them massing at the edge of our space. Looks like they're regrouping for a major assault." Admiral Nam nodded. "Let them come. The more they send, the more we can capture." Dr. Hana Song looked up from her analysis station. "Admiral, we've learned something interesting from the prisoners. The Federation has never fought a species that uses kinetic weapons. They've never encountered stealth technology. They've never faced an enemy that doesn't follow their rules of warfare. In other words," Admiral Nam said, "they have no idea how to fight us." "Exactly. They're used to battles between energy shields and plasma weapons. Formal engagements with agreed-upon rules. They treat warfare like a gentleman's duel." Admiral Nam smiled grimly. "And we treat it like a street fight." Across human space, the transformation was complete. The peaceful mining colonies and research stations had revealed themselves as military outposts. The merchant fleets had become hunter-killer squadrons. The defensive platforms hidden throughout human space were online and ready. The Federation had declared war, expecting to face a primitive species with inferior technology. Instead, they faced an enemy that had been preparing for galactic warfare for 3 centuries. An enemy that didn't fight fair, didn't follow rules, and didn't believe in honorable defeat. The aliens were about to learn why humanity was the only species in the galaxy that considered warfare both a science and an art, and the lesson was just beginning. 3 months into the war, High Chancellor Vextar stood in the emergency session chamber of the Galactic Council. His crystal body flickered with stress patterns that hadn't been seen in a Vorthak for 1,000 years. Around him, the other Federation leaders showed similar signs of distress. The reports kept coming in, and each one was worse than the last. "The human fleet has taken the Rigel system," announced Admiral Zephyr of the Namari, his gaseous form swirling with dark colors. "Our entire 4th battle group destroyed. They used asteroids as weapons, somehow accelerating them to impossible speeds." General Crixtel of the Quilix clicked his mandibles in agitation. "The humans don't fight like any civilized species. They use suicide tactics, biological weapons, and they seem to enjoy causing fear among our crews." High Chancellor Vextar's crystal form dimmed. In 3 months, the Federation had lost more ships than in the previous century of conflicts. But it wasn't just the losses that worried him. It was how the humans fought. Commander Woojin Kim of the Terran 7th Fleet had proven this perfectly at the Battle of Proxima Station. Instead of engaging the Federation fleet in honorable ship-to-ship combat, his forces had used the gravity well of a neutron star to slingshot kinetic projectiles at impossible angles. The Federation ships, expecting a traditional battle, found themselves under attack from directions that should have been physically impossible. How did they calculate those trajectories? Admiral Zephyr had demanded when he read the battle report. The mathematics alone should have taken years. But humans didn't just calculate. They improvised, they adapted. They treated every battle like a puzzle to be solved rather than a ritual to be performed. Captain Yejin Song had demonstrated this during the defense of Kepler Station. When her squadron of only 6 ships faced a Federation fleet of 30, she didn't retreat or surrender. Instead, she led the alien ships into an asteroid field and used the rocks as both cover and weapons. "Federation fleet, this is Captain Song," she had transmitted as her ships darted between asteroids. "You want to fight? Let's fight." Her ships used magnetic grapples to grab asteroids and hurl them at the Federation vessels. They hid behind space rocks and emerged to fire devastating salvos before disappearing again. When Admiral Raxion of the Namari demanded her surrender, she had laughed. "Surrender? We're just getting started." By the end of the battle, 30 Federation ships had been reduced to 12, and Captain Song hadn't lost a single vessel. But it wasn't just the space battles that terrified the Federation. The humans had begun operations behind enemy lines, and these missions were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Sergeant Ki Young Park led a special forces team that infiltrated Federation supply depots. But they didn't destroy the supplies. Instead, they planted adaptive viruses in the logistics computers. Within weeks, Federation fleets across 3 sectors experienced random equipment failures, supply shortages, and communication breakdowns. "They're not just fighting us," General Crixtel reported to the Council. "They're making us fight ourselves." Dr. Su-Jin Lee, working in a secret laboratory on Luna, had perfected what humans called their ultimate weapon: adaptive nanobots. These microscopic machines could analyze any alien technology they encountered and develop countermeasures in real time. When the nanobots were deployed against Federation ships, the results were terrifying. The aliens watched their own systems turn against them. Weapons that wouldn't fire, shields that wouldn't activate, life support systems that began producing toxic gases instead of breathable air. "It's impossible," Admiral Zephyr had gasped when his flagship's own computers began attacking his crew. "Our technology is far superior to theirs, but superior technology meant nothing when your enemy could turn it against you." The psychological warfare was even worse. Dr. Min-Soo Park, Earth's expert on alien psychology, had developed specific fear tactics for each Federation species. The crystal Vorthak found their formations constantly disrupted by sonic weapons that created resonance in their bodies. The gaseous Namari discovered that humans could deploy electromagnetic fields that caused painful disruptions in their energy patterns. The insectoid Quillix learned that humans had developed pheromone weapons that triggered panic responses in their hive minds. "They study us like we're laboratory specimens," High Chancellor Vextar reported to the Council. "They know exactly how to hurt us in ways we never imagined." On the Federation capital world of Zerion Prime, civilian populations watched news feeds showing human forces systematically dismantling their supposedly invincible fleets. The crystal Vorthak began to flicker with fear-induced dissonance. The gaseous Namari's atmospheric compositions shifted to stress patterns. The insectoid Quillix started exhibiting behaviors that their experts recognized as hive anxiety. "How are they winning?" demanded Council Member Yathara of the Melkari. "We have 1,000 ships for every one of theirs. Our technology is centuries ahead of theirs." High Chancellor Vextar had been asking himself the same question. The answer, when it came, was terrifying in its simplicity. "They don't fight the way we fight," he said slowly. "They don't use our technology. They don't follow our rules. They've created an entirely different way of warfare." The truth was becoming clear to the Federation leadership. Humans hadn't won because they had better ships or more soldiers. They had won because they understood something the Federation had forgotten in their million years of dominance. War wasn't about having the best weapons or the largest fleets. It was about having the will and the creativity to do whatever it took to protect what you loved. Admiral Dongmin Park proved this when his Terran Grand Fleet arrived at the Federation's main naval base at Centauri Prime. Instead of attacking the station directly, his ships deployed thousands of small drones that looked like space debris. The Federation defenders ignored them. The drones waited until the entire Federation fleet had launched to defend the base. Then they activated, revealing themselves as smart minds with enough explosive power to cripple capital ships. The Federation fleet found itself trapped in a minefield of their own making. "This is Admiral Park of the Terran Confederation," came the transmission from the human flagship. "Your base is surrounded. Your fleet is trapped. Surrender now, and your crews will be treated with honor." Admiral Hextoth of the Vorthak, commander of the Federation's mightiest fleet, looked at his tactical displays. Hundreds of his ships were dead in space, their hulls breached by the human mines. The rest were afraid to move, trapped between the minefield and the human guns. "How?" he asked weakly. "How did you know exactly where we would position our ships?" "Admiral," Park's reply was heard across the galaxy. "We've been watching you for 300 years, Admiral. We know how you think, how you fight, how you react. You're predictable. We're not." The Federation's member species began to panic. They had expected a quick war against primitive humans. Instead, they faced an enemy that seemed to know them better than they knew themselves. An enemy that fought without honor, without rules, without mercy. On Earth, President Insu Kim addressed the human population. The Federation declared war on us because they thought we were too violent for civilized society. They were right. But they made one crucial mistake. She paused, looking directly into the cameras that would broadcast her words to the galaxy. They assumed that violence was our weakness. They didn't understand that for humans, violence is a tool. And we are very, very good at using our tools. The war that was supposed to last weeks had stretched into months, with no end in sight. The Federation was learning the hardest lesson in galactic history. Never pick a fight with a species that turned warfare into an art form. And the humans were just getting started. 6 months after the Galactic Federation declared war on humanity, Admiral Dongmin Park stood on the bridge of his flagship Indomitable as it approached Zirian Prime, the Federation capital world. Behind him, the largest human fleet ever assembled, stretched across space like a metal constellation. The war was over. The Federation just didn't know it yet. High Chancellor Vextar waited in his crystal palace, watching the human ships fill the sky above his world. His once mighty form flickered with patterns of defeat and resignation. Around him, the other Federation leaders had gathered for what they all knew would be their final meeting as rulers of the galaxy. They could destroy us, Admiral Zephyr said, his gaseous form swirling with dark colors. Their weapons could crack our planet like an egg. But they won't, General Crixtel clicked sadly. That's what makes them so terrifying. They're not monsters. They're just better than us. The truth had become clear over the months of fighting. Humanity hadn't won through cruelty or overwhelming force. They had won through intelligence, adaptability, and a willingness to do whatever it took to protect their people. Every battle had been a lesson in human innovation. Every defeat had taught the Federation something new about their enemies. Admiral Park to High Chancellor Vexitar, came the transmission from the human flagship. I'm coming aboard to discuss terms. Vexitar's crystal form dimmed further. Terms? What terms can there be? You have won completely. That's what we need to talk about. An hour later, Admiral Park walked into the Federation Council chamber. He was not the angry conqueror the aliens expected. He was a middle-aged human with gray at his temples and tired eyes. Behind him walked Captain Haijin Kim and Commander Sang-Ho Lee, both looking more like diplomats than warriors. High Chancellor, Admiral Park said, his voice respectful but firm. The Galactic Federation's military forces have been defeated. Your fleets are destroyed or captured. Your worlds are defenseless. By any measure, this war is over. Vextar's crystal body pulsed with shame. Yes. We surrender unconditionally. Do what you will with us. Admiral Park studied the alien leader for a moment. Do you understand why? You lost? Because humans are superior warriors, Vexitar replied bitterly. No, Admiral Park said gently. Because you forgot what war really is. He walked to the center of the chamber, the same spot where Captain Dae-Ho Kim had stood 6 months ago when the Federation declared war. You fought like war was a game with rules. You used the same tactics for centuries because they worked against civilized opponents. You never adapted because you never had to. Admiral Park looked around at the defeated alien leaders. We fought like war was survival, because for us, it was. Captain Kim stepped forward. The Federation made war on humanity because you thought we were too violent for civilized society. You were right. We are violent. But you never understood that our violence comes from love. Love? General Crixtel clicked in confusion. Love for our families. Love for our homes. Love for our future. Commander Lee spoke for the first time. Every human who fought in this war was fighting to protect something they cared about. That's why we won. Not because we're better killers, but because we're better at caring. High Chancellor Vextar's form brightened slightly. What? What happens now? Will you destroy us? Enslave us? Admiral Park smiled, and for the first time since the war began, it was a gentle smile. Chancellor, humanity didn't fight this war to destroy the galaxy. We fought to protect our place in it. He activated a holographic display that showed the galaxy. The Federation model was based on hierarchy. One species rules, others obey. That model failed because it couldn't adapt to change. The display shifted, showing a new structure. The human model is based on cooperation. Species working together, each contributing their strengths. No rulers, no subjects, just partners. You're offering us partnership? Admiral Zephyr asked, his gaseous form swirling with surprise. We're offering you a choice. Admiral Park replied. Join the new Galactic Confederation as equal members or remain independent. Either way, you'll have human protection from any threats that might emerge. The alien leaders looked at each other in amazement. They had expected conquest, slavery, maybe extinction. Instead, they were being offered something that had never existed in the galaxy before: genuine equality. Why? High Chancellor Vexitar asked. After everything we did to you, why offer us this? Admiral Park's expression grew serious. Because the galaxy is vast and dangerous, Chancellor. There are things out there in the dark spaces between stars that make our little war look like a playground fight. Humanity learned long ago that we're stronger together than apart. 3 months later, Mi Young Choi stood before a very different Galactic Council. As Earth's first galactic ambassador, she looked out at representatives from 15 species, including the former Federation races who had chosen to join the new Confederation. The first meeting of the Galactic Confederation is now in session, she announced. First order of business, the exploration proposal for the Andromeda approach. Vectors. High Chancellor Vextar, now Chancellor of the Vorthak delegation rather than ruler of the galaxy, raised a crystalline hand. Ambassador Choi, the Vorthak delegation supports this proposal. Our scientists are eager to work with human explorers. It was a strange sight. Former enemies now working together, sharing technology and knowledge. The Quilix had discovered that human innovation could solve problems that had puzzled them for centuries. The Namari found that human creativity opened new possibilities they had never imagined. The Vorthak learned that human adaptability could accomplish things their rigid thinking had made impossible. On Earth, President Insu Kim addressed a joint session of the Global Parliament and alien delegates. The chamber was filled with beings who 6 months ago had been shooting at each other. The Federation declared war on humanity because they thought we were too violent and unpredictable for civilized society, she said. They were absolutely right. The difference is, we channel that violence and unpredictability toward protecting our friends and defeating our enemies. She looked around at the mixed crowd of humans and aliens. Welcome to the human way of doing things. It's messy, it's chaotic, and it doesn't always make sense, but it works. In the months that followed, the galaxy began to change in ways no one had expected. Human innovation sparked technological revolutions across dozens of worlds. Alien knowledge helped solve problems that had plagued humanity for generations. The new Confederation grew stronger with each passing day. But perhaps the most important change was in how the galaxy thought about warfare itself. The old Federation model of overwhelming force and rigid tactics gave way to the human model of adaptability and innovation. War was no longer about having the biggest stick. It was about being smart enough to avoid using it. Admiral Ji-Hoon Nam, now Supreme Commander of Confederation Defense Forces, stood in his new office on Zerion Prime, looking out at a mixed fleet of human and alien ships conducting joint training exercises. Sir, his aide, Commander Tae-hyun Kim, reported. Long-range sensors are detecting unusual activity in the Magellanic Cloud region. Something big is moving out there. Admiral Nam nodded calmly. Alert all member species. Begin defensive preparations. And Commander? Yes, sir? Make sure our new allies understand. When the next threat comes, we face it together. That's the human way. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity wasn't just another species to be conquered or controlled. They were the species that turned warfare into art, diplomacy into strategy, and enemies into allies. The Federation had declared war on humanity, expecting an easy victory. Earth had laughed, and now the galaxy knew why that laughter had been the most terrifying sound in the universe. because it was the sound of a species that knew exactly what came next. Not just victory, but transformation. Not just survival, but evolution. Not just war, but the promise of something better. The galaxy would never be the same, and that was exactly what humanity had intended all along.